Welcome to the Personal Brand Leadership Show, hosted by Dr. Nick and Prof. Gary. The show is brought to you by reciprocationmarketing.com.
This is a Personal Brand Leadership Show featuring Colleen Larsen. Now, Colleen, tell us a little bit, where did you start your career?
I started my career in the financial services industry. No, let me take a couple of steps back. I was going to be a teacher. So I left school, started a BPRIM Ed. And after a year and a half, my lecturer said that I was too emotionally involved with the kids and didn't recommend it for me. And that's where I got into marketing. And from there, went into the financial services industry. So
where in financial services did you start first?
I was very much in the insurance direct marketing side. So those packs that you get in the post box that you don't want to get for insurance packages. That's where I started, but then I went into insurance group pension fund business and ran the insurance benefits for one of the biggest unions in the country. And so it was a business that I started up, and I was looking after the insurance benefits for quite a big union in the country.
So when did you pick up your passion for women and for business engage? What was the turning point in your career?
Nick, I really fell into it. It wasn't something that I think a lot of people plot their career and they go along a certain path and they think, well, that's where we're going to get to. I quite by accident fell into it. Because I own my own small business, I was invited to a consultative forum by the then Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry, Lindiwe Hendricks, to see if there was a need for an organization to look after women entrepreneurs. And that was in 2000. For my sins, when they asked for volunteers, I don't keep my hands down. They called for volunteers because we decided that there was a need, and I put up my hand and was involved with that for a period of 5 years, eventually became chairman of the board, but woke up in November 2005 thinking one of the key aspects why women, and especially women entrepreneurs, fail is the lack of financial literacy and the lack of access to finance. With my background in financial services, I woke up thinking, why am I not doing something about it? And so I started a little hobby in 2005, and it was supposed to remain a little hobby of getting 10 to 15 women together to do financial literacy training. No sooner had we started that we started workshops and conferences. And then in 2007, I became involved in Business Unity South Africa, fast track a bit to September 2012, when government published the Women Empowerment and Gender Equality Bill. And I was asked to represent Busat Nedlak as one of the negotiators on the bill. And I woke up thinking, great that government is looking at legislation, but the reality is corporate South Africa is not going to do it because it's the right thing to do. They're going to do it because it makes business sense. And we, since September 2012, have set out creating the business case for transformation. I then had to decide, do I keep on with my business or do I do this? But by this stage, I'd already developed a passion for this and closed my business, and this is what I do on a daily basis.
So you spend most of your time on gender mainstreaming?
Gender mainstreaming, yeah, that's my, I spend 150% of my time now on gender mainstreaming. But really looking at building the business case around it. And so we've got a number of initiatives around that, and I run that, and we run them both in Joburg and Cape Town. In 2014, we were looking at how to get senior leadership to buy into it, because the reality is unless senior leadership buys into it, it's meaningless. So we can have as many tea parties we want to and as many conversations, but the reality is if we don't get senior leadership to commit to the process, we'll never see a change. So in 2014, November 2014, we approached an international campaign called the 30% Club. And that is an organization, it's actually a campaign, it's not an organization, it's a campaign that asks CEOs and chairmen to publicly commit to 30% women on boards within a period of 5 years. We launched that in September 2014, November 2014, and we've currently got 28 members on board. So apart from Business Engage and what we drive there, we are driving the 30% Club in Southern Africa. And that really is big corporates coming on board in terms of gender.
So you had a good response?
Absolutely. We've currently got 28 companies on board, the likes of Barclays, Anglo American, Anglo Gold Ashanti, Investec, PwC, EY, Telkom, Business Connection. 28 of them, we can name them, but there are three legs to it, and that's why it's so important that it's really not a once-off little initiative. It really is an ongoing initiative. There are 3 legs to it. The first leg is the member, the chairman or CEO comes on board. The second leg gets the executive search firms on board to sign a voluntary code of conduct to say they will put forward at least 30% women. The third leg is it gets the investment community on board. And currently on that leg, we've got Mine Workers Investment Company and Women's Development Bank. But it's not a quota. It really is about driving an initiative because it makes business sense. The 30% comes, it's just internationally, it's the known level at which you can influence conversation. And so that's why we work towards the 30%. It's not to say, ladies out there, it's not to say that we're only going for 30%. But the reality is you've got to have a tipping point in conversation. And we cannot do it without the men.
Colleen, what is driving you?
I think really from an authentic being yourself and knowing that I know that I'm in the right place. I think very few people get to a point where they are very comfortable where they're at. I've often heard the story of, well, if you go back into the corporate environment, you'll earn a lot more. Well, the reality is I'm at peace with where I am. I'm fulfilled. What is driving me is I know what has to happen. I know that it is a new initiative in South Africa. We're so used to talking about women empowerment and women's issues, but we don't talk about business issues. So for me, with a background in the corporate environment, I know what has to be done, and I know the conversations we have to have. And just being focused on that direction, about 4 years ago, we were involved in so many things. We were involved in breast cancer, we were involved in HIV/AIDS, we were involved in... And I sat in front of my computer one day and I thought, I know I'm supposed to be doing something, but I haven't got a clue what I'm supposed to be doing because we're involved in so many things. And it was when we turned around and said, we're not into all those little peripheral things, but this is what we're into. We're into gender mainstreaming, and we call it gender mainstreaming because unless it's mainstream within the organization, it's meaningless. Unless the organization takes it seriously, it will never have the results. So we are driving a gender mainstreaming initiative, which is very different. It's a new conversation. And what drives me is the success that we are having.
And obviously you also do quite a bit of work pro bono. Can you share what are your latest initiatives?
Well, very much on the entrepreneurial side, we do a lot of pro bono things. So we do run the Sherry Blair Foundation Mentorship Program. We do a number of women entrepreneurship training programs that we run. And those are more, a lot of initiatives come out with pro bono work and something that is not part of what they do. For us, the pro bono work is we have to do the pro bono work where we are operating. It doesn't make sense to me to go and help somebody who's in a nursery or something, because that's not our initiative. But for us, we often have a number of young women coming to join our events pro bono because they can't afford to do it. But we know that there's an outcome. So for us, most of the pro bono work is in the initiatives that we're involved in.
Colleen, just to confirm what you've said about the 30%, a recent study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics suggests that the presence of women in leadership positions have a favorable impact on the company's performance. Firms who moved from no female leaders to 30% female representation saw a 15% increase in net revenue margin on average. I think that is what you meant by a business case.
Yeah, I think, but the thing is, Gary, I think you can't, it's not about a male-female conversation. I think it's more about the diversity, because each person brings a different personality and a different whole way of doing things. So my sense is it's not just the women that have impacted. My sense is that it's the diversity that makes that happen. The reality is that you see that movement in terms of progress because of the diversity that brings the real impact. And that's what we are saying, is it's got nothing to do about men out, women in. It really is about creating the diverse structures at the top, the diversity of thought, the diversity of generation, the diversity of race, and the diversity of sex, because that is then where companies will be operating at their optimal.
Let's talk about personal brand leadership. What does it mean to you, personal branding?
Being yourself, first of all, and I think really it is about being yourself no matter what. And no matter who sees you, no matter what situation you're in, is to really just remain authentic. Because I think a lot of people change depending on the environment. For me, it is about the consistency that makes the impact. It really is about the understanding of where you, and I think it might be a maturity you get to, because I think a lot of people, especially in these day and ages where there is so much stress and everything, you tend to change your personality to cope. And the reality is that I don't believe you'll be put to any challenge that you can't overcome. So really rather remain yourself, because that's why you've been put in that situation, because you've already got what it takes to make it happen. I really think it is about knowing who you are and bringing your best you forward, not trying to become anybody else. It really is about bringing you forward.
So what lessons have you learned throughout your journey that you can share with our listeners?
I think, first of all, you cannot do it on your own. And I think a lot of people that are climbing the ladder think that they become these people that have got it all made. And I always say to people, be careful what you do to people on the way up, because you might need them on the way down. So it really is about, you cannot do it on your own. I think it's stick to who you are and your expertise, and make sure you bring on board other people that can complement what you don't have. And it doesn't matter that you don't have those skills. The reality is, if you're driving that more collaborative approach, you will succeed because you'll have all the experts around you. I think, third of all, not thinking that you've arrived. For me, life is a journey. You cannot ever say you've arrived, but at the same time, take note of your successes, because otherwise you will never get to a point where you're feeling comfortable in yourself. And so the thing is, about every single day, realize that what you've achieved is absolutely fantastic. So you might have only achieved one thing in a day, but that's great because you've achieved something. And the thing is, I think, go forward with all gusto, live life to the absolute full, and enjoy the ride. And just understand, I mean, we've been through some very interesting patches with Business Engage and what we've had to achieve and everything like that. And I strongly believe that you weren't put on this earth to fail. So put your mind on where you're going and go. You will get there, but as long as you've got the necessary support.
That's some great advice. Now, to all the aspiring leaders out there, what is the one main thing that they should concentrate on when building a strong personal brand?
I think build your network. And it's really about, and as I said, remain authentic, because you will never know, if you're going to be in different environments, you will never know who is watching you and who could potentially be your next sponsor and I think really with regards to a lot of leaders, they concentrate more on the mentorship side, not understanding that there's a sponsorship side. So mentorship is where you've got your own ideas, you've got your own goals, and somebody helps you achieve those goals. A sponsor is somebody that's going to put their neck on the block and say, Gary's the next one, or Nick's the next one, or whatever. And so you never know where that person is and who's watching you. Always remain authentic, always remain yourself, and always be striving for something better. Because to grow, you have to go for things that you might not know. And that's okay. As long as you've got a support structure, that's okay.
Just talking about mentorship, where can people find a great mentor?
There are organizations. I think the reality is a lot of people don't lock into the many organizations that are out there. They're business organizations. There's, on the Women Entrepreneur side, there's the Sherry Blair Foundation. On Business Engage, there's mentorship program. On Business Women's Association has got a mentorship program. There are various programs, but the thing is, I think a lot of people don't go and lock into the structures that are there. But especially women, it is very important that they get connected through the networks. And secondly, that they ask for help if they are needing it. Because a lot of women don't want to ask for help. A lot of women think that if they ask for help, it's, we're inferior. But I do think go and get connected. There are lots of opportunities. And then there are some informal mentorship programs where you get people that will gladly go for coffee, and others that are more formal. So go and look for where you can get connected and what's happening.
Colleen, you are very active online. You're very active on LinkedIn. So what are the key technologies that you are using for building your brand?
LinkedIn predominantly from a corporate perspective. I must be honest, I'm not that good at Twitter. I'm trying, but I'm not that good at Twitter. But LinkedIn definitely. In terms of some of the brand work we're doing is Facebook, but I tend to shy away from Facebook. I tend to have that more on a social when we've got events and that. But from a personal perspective, LinkedIn is definitely the opportunity. But also I think a lot of people don't realize that your cell phone, a whole lot of those things that we use on a day-to-day basis, it creates your brand. What photograph do you put on? What, those type of things. So you just have to be very careful.
And I see that you've got the substantial network on LinkedIn, but you also make a big effort to meet people face to face.
Absolutely. I strongly believe in it. And there are two things on LinkedIn. So number one is the person doesn't have a photograph. I will not accept the invite. Number two, if I have connected with somebody on LinkedIn or if they've connected with me and I reach out and I say, let's go for coffee because I want to know more about what they do and who they are, and I don't get a response, I delete them. Because essentially I've spent a long time building up a group of people that I can call on or that can call on me. And I know extensively who those people are, what they do, what they stand for, what they're looking for, and the same thing about me. So you're not going to build a brand and you're not going to build a relationship with somebody just because you connected with them on LinkedIn. It was actually quite funny because one day somebody turned around and said to me, "Oh, Colleen, you don't know all the people on your LinkedIn profile." And I said, "Oh, yes, I do." And they said, no. And they started throwing out names and I could answer every single one and every single thing that they did and where they were and where they're situated. And that for me is very important. Obviously, the international ones is a little bit different. But those I'm connected with because of a specific reason or a connection we've had. But really, it's very important to make sure that the people you connected with are the right people and for the right reason.
You obviously do have a quality network, even with more than, I believe, 6,000 connections on LinkedIn. Now, with all the technology around us, where do you see the future of personal branding going? Between technology, between humanity, the human element, what are your thoughts on the future of personal branding?
I think there's quite a disconnect between what people kind of understand social media. So especially in terms of that, well, I'm at a party and take photographs and do that type of thing, and where you can grow your brand from a business perspective. So for me, it's very, very important to make sure that your brand is crystal clear, that you understand that anybody can get into your social media, even if you're not connected with them. And that is quite a disconnect because especially the younger generation, for them, they don't communicate voice to voice. It's on WhatsApp or on whatever. And so for them, it's not seen as an issue. But I do think that we're going to get to a point where you have to be so careful in terms of going forward. That essentially you have to become a lot more selective about what you put on, when you put on and how you put on, and what media you do actually go for.
Do you see a future where networking will be reduced to technology, to speaking, networking between one mobile to the next?
I mean, with the younger generation, there is a risk of that happening because they don't communicate face to face. When I look at my two kids that are 23 and 20, for them, it's quite easier to send a message rather than my daughter will walk out the door and she'll send me a WhatsApp, and so you look at that. But I think it's so sad because especially nowadays, I think we are in a connection economy where it still matters that the relationships. I do think, though, that you will never lose that personal touch because the bigger deals, I think, will still be done on who do I know and what do I know about that person. And sometimes it's very easy for somebody to conjure up a story online about who they are and what they represent. But when you meet them, it's a totally different thing. So I still think there will be a level of that personal touch. I don't think it will ever go to purely digital. But I do think that the digital age will open up a whole new spectrum of opportunities, especially if you look at, this is old hat for younger people, but Skype and that type of thing. I mean, who thought that I would be communicating with somebody across the ocean via Skype or something like that. So the technology does open up those opportunities to do business on a more global scale. But I still think that the personal touch will still remain.
Colleen, can you share some stories, or what is the biggest success that Business Engaged for helping to build a personal brand?
Well, from a Business Engaged perspective, it is the whole rollout of the 30% Club Southern Africa. And I think where you actually find that a lot of organizations are struggling nowadays with regards to some of the objectives that they're looking to meet, and we're not. And I think the thing is really understanding the direction you've got to go and to be able to build that. In the last 3 months, we've closed 11 of the companies out of the 28. So it just shows that momentum. So it did take a long time. And I think the thing was just that remaining focus when everybody was thinking, and I must be honest, I was sitting thinking, we're not gaining traction, what's happening? But yet, if I look at the momentum that's being created, we also at a point now where we're not going out and looking for those only, but we've got companies approaching us and say, we've heard about you, or we've read you in the Sunday Times, or something like that. So I do think it's that word of mouth which has really shown that we've had impact.
So what does the future of brand leadership hold in your view?
Brand leadership is extremely important, because the thing is that there are so many people trying to do exactly the same thing at exactly the same time. And it's what are you offering that is different? Where we come from is we realize that we are experts in what we do, but there are other experts out there in what they do. And so for us, it's a very collaborative movement of bringing together a number of different organizations under one umbrella to really move forward. So for me, the brand leadership is more important in terms of what we are able to achieve going forward. And the thing is to be always striving for better, because I think sometimes when organizations get to a point where they have got quite a few large companies like we have on board, it's so we've done what we set out to achieve. But for us, it's more important with the impact that we're going to have eventually on the bottom line of businesses in South Africa. So for us, it really is about that movement more than a once-off initiative. It really is. Somebody said to me, how will you know you've arrived? I said, well, when we don't have to have the conversation about gender issues anymore. And so it really is a much bigger picture than just building what we've achieved to date. It really is about going to something much bigger.
Where can people and how can people get hold of you?
Either on my email, it's Colleen, COLLEN, @businessengage.coza, or on our websites, businessengage.coza, or 30%, the percent written out, 30%club.org.
When it comes to your thought leadership, where can people follow you? On your blog, on LinkedIn? Where should they go?
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn. Yeah, that is where I predominantly am. As I said, Facebook we use only for our events and that type of thing. So you wouldn't find anything on that. I'm in a lot of groups on LinkedIn, and that is where you can follow what we're doing.
And then last but not least, what is the one thing that you would really ask your listeners to take away from this show?
To remain focused and to remain authentic. Because it really is up to the individual person. You can say whatever you like, you can do whatever you like, but if your fruits aren't seen by what you're doing, it will be absolutely meaningless. So you can write down what you please, but remain authentic, and whatever you say you're going to do, make sure you do it.
Now, authenticity, so many people are preaching it, but you seem to have a very clear idea. How would you, in your own mind, how do you define authenticity?
Well, it's being yourself. It's bringing your own self, and really, and that's what I said right from the word goes. Wherever you are, remain constant, because it's that consistency of who you are that builds your brand. It's when you start changing that consistency that people say, yeah, but you're not like that because I saw you in a different scenario. And so whoever you're with, whether it is a cleaner, all the way up to somebody senior, just remain yourself and remain constant and consistent.
Thank you very much, Colleen. This concludes the Personal Brand Leadership Show with Colleen Larsen.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Brand Leadership Show, hosted by Dr. Nick and Prof. Gary, brought to you by reciprocationmarketing.com.